So I'll do a quick round the triangle one and around the virtuous cycle one rather. Right. Start by understanding your costs. And we've all gone through that with the labor cost calculator and what margins you make and trying to go through your labor rates or your unit rates or whatever. Right. And number two is you set your rates. You go, all right, I understand my costs. These are now my rates for labor or for what I charge for materials or for what I charge for pre-builds or assemblies or whatever you guys call them. And then you should build a price book with margins in it. And then you should build an estimating process with the same margins in it and the prices from the price book. And then you should do quotes using the process and the price book. Then you should win jobs and you should retain the same margins in the winning jobs, right? You shouldn't be discounting or throwing money away there. Then you should check the margins, right? You should understand whether you did make that margin on the jobs. And then if you didn't, you have to figure out where the problem is and fix it. That's our virtuous cycle. And you really should be going around that all the time, or somebody in your business should, right? It's really important, isn't it, to be confident that you're making profits. So, and the other thing, this is another thing to remind you of, right? The money holes. Remember we talking about this? Remember the leaky bucket I was holding up, pissing water on myself and that? These are usually where it's going, right? These are the things that are usually causing the problem. So what we're trying to do is go around our cycle and measure things and see where the problems are. And here's a list, a helpful list, right? Number one, not charging enough in the first place. If you're not charging enough in terms of margins on labor and materials or labor and materials and subcontractors, that's going to cause you a problem, right? It's going to give you bad margins. If you charge enough in the first place, but then discount when somebody says, oh, you're too expensive, that's going to eat into your profits, right? And, you know, if you don't know, it's harder to resist the pressure to discount, right? If you're not confident that your price is reasonable or fair. If you fuck up your estimating, right? If your estimating isn't accurate, right? If it under allows, is really where I'm talking about, isn't it? You know, if your estimating produces estimates that don't allow enough time, there's a problem there. You know, and for most people, that's quite easy to happen, especially if you get into pre-builds and unit rates where you're not really thinking about what's actually going on in this job. You're just taking from a list and applying some rules. So that can happen quite easily. You'd have shitty execution, right? That's when your estimating was right, but people took too long. And there could be many reasons for that, right? They could be slow and useless and lazy, like Michelle was saying, or they could be not as fast as you because, you know, you're a bit more special than they are. So shitty execution, I mean, people taking longer than you think or being disorganized or otherwise not doing it as you allowed in your quote. And there could be lots of reasons for that, right? It could be because you didn't give them good instructions. It could be because they're slow. It could be lots of other things. It could be shitty project management. So that's when the scope changes and you don't get the variations. You don't get paid for the scope expanding usually, right? And that's reasonably common. You could have overhead creep, right? What Ben was talking about when you've hired too many people and the revenue hasn't yet grown, the overhead's crept up and they're eating into your margins. It could be when people don't pay, right? And I've separated people not paying and you failing to ask for payments. That happens, right? We've all had debtors bigger than we like and people taking longer to pay than we like, or companies going under and not paying us. I've had that. Michelle and I had that earlier this year. So that's a thing. I've also met lots of tradies who fail to ask for payment properly, who've done jobs and then not invoiced. I personally have been on the receiving end of that 3 times. Clearly, I'm quite conscious of it because I'm a business coach for tradies, so I notice. But there have been 3 times in recent memory where I've got a tradie to do some work and not got an invoice. Leaving money on the table, I'm talking about not upselling, because I see that quite often as well. You know, you have the great sort of opportunity in your businesses of being in someone's place of business or someone's building site and having opportunity to see if other stuff needs doing. And if you don't take it, you're leaving money on the table. I think that's a shame. The other one's not knowing. If you don't know what your numbers are and you don't know where it's going, right? So not knowing is a crime. And then going quiet is a crime, right? Because if you're paying everybody and there's no work for them to do, even if you scramble around trying to loan them out to somebody else and try and hedge it off like that, it's still very costly for you. So I probably should have put that one at the beginning as number one, but I didn't. So there's a few places it can go, right? And what you're going to do, these all go around the triangle, don't they? These are all parts of your sales machine or your marketing machine or your operations machine or your back office machine or you and your people, right? And pretty much any result we're going to get from going around our virtuous cycle and measuring job profitability is going to give us an answer that sits in here, right? And I would probably say that for most of you, most of these things are going on a little bit at least. right? I bet none of you could put your hand on your heart and say you've never missed a variation, right? Mostly when I say this, people are like, oh, yeah, it happens all the time, right? Or that you've never done a job that didn't go to plan and cost you money, or, you don't discount when you come under pressure. It's a real pressure. They're all probably problems for all of you to a greater or lesser extent. So the context for this is, let's try and do the measuring job profitability at least a bit better than you're doing it now, to see where your biggest problem is and see if you can fix that. Okay. So it's not only pricing, there's 11.